This is Judge Lavarado of Monterey County. Judge, so far from this conference, what have you learned that surprised you or that you did not know before?
Well, first of all, it's a great conference, and obviously the conference is on trauma-related issues regarding individuals in mental health court and drug treatment court atmosphere. And if there is a trauma-related issue with regards to an individual, a client, it's important to get to the bottom of that particular issue immediately in order to address the issues and concerns with regards to whatever, substance abuse issues, with regards to mental health issues, behavioral issues, and so that is important to do that. So that's what I've got from this conference so far.
And how do you think some of your clients might benefit from trauma-informed care?
Well, a client would definitely benefit from trauma-informed screening, trauma-informed care, because obviously it gets to the bottom of the issue. And if an individual is having issues of trauma that has affected them in the past, it's important for the collaborative team to get to the bottom of those issues, which will obviously help with other issues in life with regarding substance abuse issues, mental health issues, etc.
What do you think, or are you thinking, that you might take away from this training, and what will you do with that information?
Well, you know, it's an interesting question. Before I came to this training, I was wondering where this particular training would go with regarding trauma-related issues. It's something that you don't necessarily talk about in our team meetings for any particular client per se, but it's an issue that I think that needs to be screened out, especially on the behavioral health side of things at the get-go with regards to setting up that treatment plan for a particular person. So one of the things I hope to do is go back to our jurisdiction and look into those issues, see if we are screening for trauma-related issues, and if we're not, I think we need to definitely get to that point. Once we get to that point, we need to also see if there are programs out there, if there are that would basically assist with a trauma-related issue.
And I think you've probably partially answered the next question. How do you think your staff colleagues will utilize this information? Is there anything else you can think of?
Not necessarily. Like I said, I think that first of all, I think I want to make sure that we're screening for trauma-related issues. If we are screening for trauma-related issues, then we would need to find out and see if there are programs that would address those specific issues to any particular client. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Did I do okay? Want me to
This is Judge Deborah Gibbons from Yuba County. Judge, what have you learned or heard at this conference so far that surprises you or that you didn't know before?
Well, one thing I never appreciated was the difference between a crisis and a trauma, or a traumatic event, if you will. And it's interesting that, you know, we've learned one can move on from a crisis, but trauma, either a singular episode or a reoccurring event, is really quite debilitating. And how critical it is for us to be sensitive to that and address those needs that individuals may have that come before us.
Let's continue. We're giving you a glass of water. It's being recorded. We're not going to use it. I might use your questions in case there is a hiccup later.
Okay. How might some of your clients benefit from trauma-informed care?
Well, clients that I see, whether it's defendants in the criminal justice system and those participating in drug court, for example, or I also handle the juvenile calendar, including dependencies. I see children and adults that are resistant, if you will, to participating in therapy. And I see with so many of those individuals how absolutely critical therapy is. perhaps they've had a negative experience with it. And from what we saw this morning, you may have to go try different therapies or different therapists and different ways of doing business. It's not a cookie cutter model.
What do you think that you will take away from this training, and what will you do with that information?
Well, for example, those that may be resistant, I think it's very important for the court to encourage participation, not force it, but encourage those who are working with the individual in treatment or probation to think outside the box. Maybe another model is appropriate, another individual working with that person, for example, in therapy, is critical. I've also taken away, the screening, trauma screening, how absolutely critical that is with the people that come before us, and how important it is for probation, for example, to include this. I understand it is available, and it's easy to use, and very importantly, it's free. This is something we just must incorporate, and if we don't, we are not doing the service to the individuals that we see. I also believe that I always think of the players as, the team that meets in my chambers in the morning, and an overlooked critical player is someone like our bailiff. I had not appreciated that before. And it's true. They are, initially, the first ones to contact our clients before they even come into the courtroom. Or they're there to greet the people that come before the court in the morning while they're waiting for court to begin. I know as the presiding judge of my court, I'm going to be meeting with the sheriff and discuss the requirement that not only the bailiff in the drug court, but every bailiff assigned to our courtroom is some trauma-informed education, training, because they play such a critical role, and including this, the way to avoid re-traumatizing individuals. It's awfully important. It's something very practical that we can put into effect earlier, not later, and so I'm very excited about it.
That goes into our last question. Are there any other ways that you think that your staff or colleagues could utilize this information?
I think colleagues as well. That's another. When you're presiding over a treatment or a collaborative court, we really do try to look, outside the box, try to think outside the box. We're able to be more creative. I think educating all the judges with trauma-informed care, because they're going to see them, whether it's in a criminal court, in a family law court, in the juvenile court, and actually in the civil court, having sat in that court as well. It's important for us to do our jobs effectively, improve the service we provide, improve the access to justice to the litigants that come before the court, that we're aware of this. And so that's another training I'd like to incorporate with my colleagues.
Thank you very much, Judge Gibbons. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is Christina Zarabi, who is a resource specialist with the Santa Clara Family Law Treatment Court. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you.
Christina, what have you heard at this conference so far that surprises you or that you didn't know before?
Definitely, I'd have to say the power of trauma. We've always dealt with trauma, especially in the family court setting. We have clients who have issues with mental health, substance abuse, and they've lost their children. They've dealt with a lot of different types of trauma, but definitely this information today has taught me that the power of trauma is just beyond words can explain. The speakers that were here talking about the trauma, their stories were so just unreal, and we see it every day. We work with these clients, but I didn't really know the power that it had.
And how do you think that some of your clients might benefit from trauma-informed care?
Definitely getting a better understanding of the resiliency, the after effects, knowing the process, the patterns, what they're going to go through. Clients that have dealt with trauma might not have a clear understanding of what they're going through. So the support and information that they get from us is definitely vital, especially because for Family Law Treatment Court, we're the first contact after that trauma of having lost their children. They come out of court, they're told these are the resources, go use them. So we're like the one stop after they've actually dealt with the trauma, and actually for us being able to give them that information is definitely vital.
What do you think you'll be able to take away from this training, and what do you think you'll be able to do with that information?
I have a better understanding of trauma care, how to deal with clients who have dealt with trauma. I have a better understanding of the aftercare that is needed. Definitely being able to process that with clients, making sure and having a better understanding that, the court might not always be the perfect setting for them to express and deal with that trauma. And just really dealing with every client case by case as an individual and having a better understanding is what I've been able to take away from this training that I think will definitely benefit Superior Court as well as the clients.
And how do you think that your colleagues and staff will utilize this new information?
In the work that we do in Superior Court, it's definitely a collaboration. The judges work with the treatment coordinators work with the restraining order department and the clerks, and all of these people work with the clients to help support the client, and just being able to give them that information so that they can actually have a better understanding of trauma and having empathy and having more compassion and having more support for these clients will definitely be useful for everybody.
Thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you.
This is Samantha Rotner-Bell. She's a probation officer with Inyo County. Samantha, how are you today?
I'm well.
Thank you. What have you heard so far from this conference or training that you didn't know before or that surprised you?
That I didn't know before. Well, having a risk assessment tool or a tool to use for trauma-informed clients. I don't think that we have one or use one for our drug court.
Okay, and how might some of your clients benefit from trauma-informed care?
One of the things that I heard today that I think they might benefit from were the animals, the dogs. Our therapists, they do have dogs there at the facility. However, I don't believe that they're actually used with our drug court participants, and I'd like to see them more involved with that. So I think they might benefit from that.
What will you take away from this training, and what do you think that you can do with that information?
I'm going to, I think I could take it back to my drug court team and bring up the tool, the assessment tool, and then also just looking into maybe we need somebody else, a therapist that's more mental health inclined for counseling, and we don't really have that on our team.
How do you think that staff or colleagues that you work with will utilize this new information?
I think just it would be helpful for them to understand how maybe to approach people who we consider everybody as trauma, that they've had some kind of trauma. I think that was really important, stood out to me, that even if we don't know that they've been traumatized, to treat them as if they have been traumatized. And so to be aware of that, it's likely they have had some kind of trauma.
Okay, thank you, Samantha.